funny thing about silence, it doesn't mean nothing's happening. Sometimes it means everything is. Behind those quiet eyes, behind the locked doors of a kid's mind, there's a war going on that nobody talks about at dinner. And your son, he's in the middle of it. Not waving a flag, not asking for help. Just trying to breathe. Just trying to be enough in a world that keeps shifting the definition. You ever think about that? How hard it is to scream without making a sound? You ever look into his eyes and wonder where he went? The boy who used to laugh like the whole world was his playground, who used to ask why 1,000 times just to hear your voice answer? He's still in there, you know. Somewhere between the silence and the sideways glances, between the I'm fine and the locked bedroom doors. He didn't vanish. He adapted. Because somewhere along the line, the world taught him that feeling too much was a flaw and being loud with emotion was dangerous. So he learned to shut up before he ever learned to speak. He's got a war going on behind those eyes, a quiet one. No guns, no explosions, just the slow bleed of identity being rewritten by expectation. He's not telling you because he doesn't trust you. He's not telling you because he doesn't trust himself. You told him to be strong, to toughen up, to keep his chin up no matter what. And he did. Oh, he did. So well that now he can't put it back down. Now his neck aches from carrying a mask that doesn't even fit right. You think silence means peace. You think no news is good news, but in boys like him, silence is often the alarm. It's the scream buried under layers of don't be soft, get over it, and boys don't cry. You see him sitting there scrolling, zoned out, tuned in to anything but you. But that distance, that's not disrespect. That's armor. That's survival. That's him saying, if I speak, I'll shatter, and I don't know who's going to help pick up the pieces. He's not lazy. He's not lost. He's exhausted from pretending, from carrying weights he doesn't have the language to explain, from trying to be something for everyone and nothing for himself. He's in rooms full of people and still feels alone. He laughs on cue and no one hears how hollow it sounds because no one's listening to the frequency he's crying on. And the world rewards the boys who keep it in, who take the punch and smile, who succeed on the outside and rot on the inside. But the ones who feel deeply, who question the rules, who don't just follow the script, they get labeled too sensitive, too angry, too quiet, too much. And so he learns to edit himself, to shrink, to disappear in plain sight, all while everyone keeps saying he's doing great. There's a storm in him, and not because he's broken, but because he's real. He notices things no one else sees. He absorbs moods. He analyzes silence. He sees the cracks in the walls before they even form. That kind of awareness, it doesn't come without a cost. It makes him cautious, makes him skeptical, makes him build walls out of sarcasm and detachment, hoping someone, anyone, might care enough to look past them. But most people don't. They see the attitude and not the ache. They respond to the reaction and ignore the wound. So he keeps it all in, bottles it, labels it nonsense or overthinking or whatever, because the moment he lets it out, he's afraid it'll all explode. And the worst part? He thinks he'll be blamed for the mess it makes. He needs someone who doesn't flinch when he's not okay. Someone who won't shut him down when he says something dark or confusing or honest. He's not looking for pity. He's not asking for a fix. He just wants to be, without performing, without filtering, without being told to calm down or act right or smile more. You want to reach him? Don't shout. Don't demand. Don't guilt. Just sit. Just notice. Just be the one place where he doesn't have to prove anything, where he can be messy, moody, magnificent, all at once. Because underneath the silence, there's a voice. Underneath the mask, there's a boy, not a burden, not a problem to be solved, a person who feels everything, who sees everything, who's just waiting for someone to see him too. You tell a boy to be strong, to suck it up, to stop crying, or you'll give him something to cry about, and then you wonder why he doesn't talk to you anymore, why he walks around like a closed door with a heartbeat, why he flinches at softness and shrinks from comfort like it's poison. You built him a cage and called it manhood, then blamed him for not flying. You gave him the armor before you gave him the reason. And now he's armored for war, in a world that just wanted him to learn how to breathe. You handed him a script full of shoulds and musts and never show them it hurts, and he followed it like a good little soldier. He learned early that emotions are currency in short supply. You spend them and you're broke. So he hoarded them, locked them up, buried them deep enough that even he forgot where he put them. But guess what? They didn't die, they mutated. They leaked through the cracks in his voice, in his fists, in the way he avoids eye contact when the room gets too real. That's not apathy. That's self-protection. You think strength is the absence of emotion? Cute. Real strength is letting the dam break and still showing up. But he was never shown that version. He was shown a man with a cold stare and a tight jaw, a hero who walks through fire but never says it burned. So now he copies the mask but not the story. He thinks if he's silent long enough, the pain will dissolve. But it doesn't. It calcifies. It turns into detached, into this numb, quiet rage that eats at him from the inside. Now he walks around like a ghost in his own life. He plays the part, smiles when you need him to, nods when he should speak, laughs when he wants to scream. 'Cause he knows the rules. He knows that emotions make people uncomfortable, especially from boys, especially from him. So he adjusts. He shrinks. He performs until one day he forgets who he was before the act began. But make no mistake, he feels deeply. You don't build walls unless there's something worth protecting. He feels it all. The pressure, the guilt, the fear of letting you down, the fear of being too much or not enough, or both at the same time. That emotional prison isn't weakness, it's a survival tactic. Because in his world, being strong meant never asking for help, never cracking, never showing the human underneath the armor. And here's the twist. He doesn't want to be saved. He wants to be seen. He wants someone to look past the shutdowns, the outbursts, the distance, and realize that maybe, just maybe, he's carrying more than his age should allow. That maybe he's been strong for so long he's forgotten how to be anything else. And that kind of forgetting, that's dangerous. That's how kids disappear while still breathing. You don't fix that with pep talks. You don't fix it with just talk to me. You fix it by earning your way back into his trust, by becoming a space that doesn't punish emotion, that doesn't roll its eyes at tears or frown at fear. You become the place where he can take off the armor without getting stabbed in the soul. That's what he needs, not correction, connection. Because the truth is, he's not unreachable. He's just tired of reaching out and grabbing air. Tired of people asking how he is but walking away when the answer isn't easy. Tired of being told to open up by people who don't know what to do with the truth when it shows up. So he learned to carry it alone, to keep his storms private, to turn strength into silence and call it maturity. But silence doesn't mean healed. And strength without emotional freedom is just another form of captivity, one that looks good in photos but feels like hell in the mirror. So maybe next time you see him, don't ask him how school was. Don't ask him what his plans are. Ask him if he's tired. Ask him what scares him. Ask him if he ever feels like screaming but forgets how to make sound. And then just sit there, quiet, still, strong enough to feel with him instead of fixing him. That's the kind of strength he's been dying to see. They say boys act out when they're bad, when they're broken, when they've got something wrong in their heads. But what if it's not bad behavior? What if it's a broadcast? A silent signal flaring out from behind their eyes, screaming, "Somebody notice me before I disappear completely." But nobody listens to that frequency. They only hear the slammed doors, the skipped classes, the cold shoulders. They never think maybe he's not rebelling. Maybe he's reacting to the feeling of being misunderstood, misread, mislabeled by the very people who are supposed to know him best. You can only wear a mask for so long before it starts to fuse with your skin, before you forget what your own face looks like underneath it. That's what happens to him. Day after day, he pretends to be what you expect. He plays the quiet son, the polite student, the strong boy. But inside, there's a roar building, a storm trapped in a teacup. And when it spills, it's not pretty. It's chaos. It's loud. It's confusing. It doesn't come out in carefully chosen words. It comes out in sarcasm, in defiance, in "I don't care," even though he does. So much it hurts. You see, pain's a tricky little magician. It doesn't always wear black. Sometimes it walks in with headphones on and a hoodie up. Sometimes it slouches in the back of the classroom or stares blankly at a dinner plate. You won't catch it with questions like, "What's wrong with you?" or "Why can't you be more like?" No, that just feeds the fire. Because now he's not just in pain, he's wrong for being in pain. Congratulations. You've just told him he's not allowed to hurt, and he's not allowed to show it. So he starts hiding it deeper, buries it under jokes, covers it with distance, builds sarcasm like armor. People call it attitude, but it's really a defense mechanism. The more misunderstood he feels, the sharper his words get. Not because he's trying to hurt anyone, but because he's tired of being the only one bleeding. And if the world's going to misread him anyway, He figures he might as well take control of the narrative. If they're going to call him a problem, he'll be their problem. That way, at least, he's writing part of the script. But underneath all of that static, there's still a signal. There's still a kid who wonders if he's enough, who checks his reflection and doesn't recognize the eyes staring back, who remembers a time when he used to feel light before everything got heavy, before expectations started weighing more than he could carry, before love started to feel like a transaction he couldn't afford. He remembers, even if he doesn't say it out loud. You keep asking what happened to him. Maybe the better question is what happened around him. When did the world start expecting him to have it all together? When did he become the therapist for his friends, the rock for his family, the example for his siblings? When did he learn that vulnerability makes you a target and silence makes you safe? He didn't choose to become this version. He became it to survive, to exist in a space where feeling too much got you laughed at, or worse, ignored. And still, even in all that chaos, there's hope. That's the part you can't see on the surface. The fact that he wants to be understood, the fact that despite the shutdowns, despite the coldness, he still listens, still watches, still notices when someone finally sees through the smoke and mirrors. He still hopes that one day someone won't be scared of his intensity, someone who won't run when the words come out messy, someone who can sit with the fire and not flinch. He doesn't want to be fixed. He's not broken. He's burned. He's been through the kind of silent battles that don't leave scars on skin, but on spirit. And he's done trying to explain himself to people who already made up their minds. What he's looking for isn't pity, it's presence. Someone real, someone patient, someone who will look at the mess and still say, I see you. Because that's all he's ever really wanted, to be seen, not sorted, heard, not handled, known, not diagnosed. He's not acting out. He's reaching out, the only way he knows how. You want to know what really messes a kid up? It's not the monsters under the bed. It's the ones sitting across the dinner table, smiling. It's the ones who pat him on the head and say, we're proud of you, even when they haven't looked him in the eyes for weeks. He hears it, sure, but he doesn't feel it. That's the trick. That's where the whole damn game breaks. When the words and the eyes don't match. When love becomes a performance instead of a presence. That's when he starts to wonder if he's living in a play where everyone else got the script but him. He starts measuring his worth in silence, in chores done, in grades earned, in how little trouble he causes. You don't notice that, do you? The way he shrinks himself to avoid making waves. He walks on eggshells, not because he's fragile, but because your expectations are. You want him to be perfect, but not too perfect. Confident, but not too emotional. Strong, but never vulnerable. What's left after that little balancing act? A puppet. A hollow shell, smiling for applause it never asked for. And let's talk about love, shall we? You think it's about providing, protecting, feeding, clothing. But for him, it's about being known. And he's starving for it. Not food, not shelter, attention, not the loud, obvious kind, the quiet, patient kind, the kind that listens when he doesn't know how to speak, the kind that sees when he's hiding, the kind that doesn't just show up when he wins, but when he falls flat on his face and can't figure out which way's up. See, he was never taught how to be seen. He was taught how to behave, how to perform, how to earn love, not receive it. And when you make love something that has to be earned, guess what? You create a kid who feels like a fraud every time someone says they care. A kid who thinks if they really knew what I was thinking, they'd run. So he hides. Not because he wants to, but because he has to. It's survival. Camouflage. Protection from the sting of being misunderstood one more time. He watches everything. Don't let the blank stare fool you. He sees who gets praised and who gets punished. He sees the way you light up for other people's kids and go dim around him. He hears the tone in your voice when you're disappointed, and it echoes longer than the actual words. He memorizes every look, every sigh, every time you say not now, and slowly, piece by piece, he builds a story in his head, a story where he's never enough, a story where he's too complicated to be loved without conditions. And when he finally starts pulling away, you act shocked, like you didn't see it coming, like you weren't part of the great vanishing act. But he didn't vanish, you just stopped looking. He got tired of competing with your phone, your job, your moods, your standards. He got tired of chasing a connection that felt more like a contract. So he stopped talking, stopped trying. You call it distance, he calls it peace. But it eats at him, the distance, the way he feels invisible in a room full of people. The way his wins feel ignored and his failures feel magnified. He wants to scream sometimes, not at you, to you. He wants to say, please see me. Please stop judging the surface and start listening to the silence. Please stop expecting me to be okay just because I haven't broken down in front of you. But he won't say it. Because the last time he tried, he was told to get over it, that other people have it worse, that feelings are temporary, that boys are supposed to be tough. So now he wears tough like a uniform, not because it fits, but because it's safer than being soft. He's got walls higher than your reach, built brick by brick out of shrugged shoulders and whatever. You want to know what's behind those walls? A kid who just wants to know if love still exists without performance, if he can fall apart without being cast out, if there's still a place for him when he's not winning, not impressing, not pretending. That place where love doesn't have to be earned, just felt, just known. They act like he was supposed to grow up perfect just because he came from a good home. Good grades, good manners, good smile, good boy. But no one ever stopped to ask what kind of storm was brewing behind that good behavior. Because sometimes the scariest thing isn't a kid who breaks the rules. It's the one who follows them too well. The one who does everything right, says everything right, until one day and nobody sees it coming, because he never made a sound when he cracked. That's the thing. When a boy learns early that disappointment hurts worse than discipline, He starts holding his breath around the people he loves. He starts making himself smaller so their world stays neat. He doesn't speak up when he's scared, doesn't push back when he's lost, doesn't cry when he's dying inside. Because somewhere along the way, he decided that being loved means being invisible when it matters most. And you know what's crazy? He could be surrounded by people who love him, who say it all the time, but if he doesn't feel it, it's like screaming into a void. Because love without presence feels like abandonment in disguise. It's the birthday party where everyone's there but nobody's looking at him. The family dinner where his voice bounces off cold walls. The hugs that feel like habits instead of heartbeats. And when that happens enough times, he learns how to smile with his mouth and scream with his silence. You might say, but he never said anything. Of course not. He was too busy decoding the rules, too busy analyzing your moods. He became an emotional detective before he hit puberty, tracking tone shifts, eye rolls, disappointed sighs. He learned the hard way that honesty has a cost, that saying I'm not okay might turn the room cold, or worse, might be ignored. So he saves it, bottles it, turns pain into performance, is applauded for being so mature. Mature. That's the word they slap on boys who've been through too much too soon and decided to carry it all in silence. You call it strength, he calls it survival. He becomes the one everyone leans on, the problem solver, the peacemaker, the guy who doesn't ask for help because he's too busy giving it. And no one stops to ask where he goes when it's 2 a.m. and the weight gets too heavy. He stares at his own ceiling and wonders how he got here, wonders if anyone sees the version of him that doesn't have it together, the one that panics before school, the one that feels like an alien in his own house, the one that wants to scream until something breaks but doesn't want to be labeled dramatic. So he says nothing, does nothing, just keeps playing the role because at least it keeps everyone else comfortable. He struggles to keep everyone else comfortable, but inside he's collapsing. Not all at once, piece by piece. And you won't notice until it's too late. Until the grades drop, the friends disappear, the light in his eyes flickers out, until he starts skipping meals, or skipping class, or skipping life altogether. Then everyone will say, we didn't know. But he was telling you every quiet night, every fake laugh, every I'm fine spoken through clenched teeth. You just weren't listening in the right language. Because here's the twist. He's not angry at the world. He's exhausted from trying to belong in it. Exhausted from trying to be the son, the student, the friend, the man, all at once with no room to just be a human. And when he finally cracks, when the mask slips, people act surprised. They treat the breakdown like a betrayal instead of a warning sign, as if he owes the world a version of himself that's always okay, always smiling, always manageable. He doesn't want pity, he wants permission. Permission to mess up, to not have all the answers, to fall apart without being discarded. He wants someone to say, you don't have to earn your place here. Someone who doesn't just nod through the pain, but sits with it. Who doesn't rush to fix him, but chooses to feel with him. Because he's not a project, he's a person. A loud, quiet, broken, beautiful, complicated person who's tired of pretending the weight doesn't hurt. And maybe, just maybe, if someone looked past the mask, If someone said, "I see the real you, and you're still worthy," he'd believe it. He'd finally breathe without bracing for impact. He'd finally rest. Not because everything's fixed, but because for once, he's not carrying it alone. Ever watch a kid try to hold back a scream? Not the loud kind, the silent one. The kind that comes from the chest, not the throat. The kind that doesn't echo in rooms, but rattles around in the ribs like a trapped animal. That's the kind of scream he's been carrying since the day he realized people only love the version of him they can control. They clap when he smiles. They wince when he questions. They nod when he agrees. But the second he tries to be real, everything starts to feel cold. See, no one prepares a boy for the moment he realizes that love comes with a contract, that approval is conditional, that his voice is welcome until it makes people uncomfortable. They tell him to speak his truth until it stops matching theirs. They tell him to be brave until he cries. They say, "Be yourself," as long as that self doesn't break their image of him. So what does he do? He learns to bend, not like a reed, like a wire, all twisted up inside, pretending it's flexibility. They call it growing up, learning how to cope. But what it really is shrinking. He used to dance without music, laugh without a filter, cry without shame, and now he walks like the ground might give way beneath him. He answers questions like every word could be a landmine. He starts measuring his feelings by how easy they are for others to digest. And slowly, without even noticing, he becomes fluent in emotional censorship. He starts apologizing for things he doesn't even understand, for being too quiet, too intense, too distant, too much. And then one day he starts apologizing just for existing, because when you grow up with people who only see you when you're easy to love, you start thinking visibility itself is a privilege you haven't earned. That being noticed is something you have to buy with obedience. And the irony? He becomes the strongest person in the room, not because he wants to be, but because no one else steps up. He becomes the one who absorbs the chaos, who diffuses the tension, who fills the silence with jokes or nods or fake calm. He becomes the lightning rod for everyone else's storms. And they call him dependable. They call him solid. But never soft, never safe, because safe doesn't flinch when the mask slips. Safe doesn't punish truth. Safe doesn't make love a transaction. He gets used to being the last one asked how he's doing, because everyone assumes he's fine, because he's good at playing fine. It's a performance now. And not the fun kind, not theater, not spotlight. This is survival theater. The mask has grown skin deep. Some days he even forgets it's there, until he's alone, until it's quiet. And then that scream again, low and ugly and ancient, a reminder that no matter how much applause he gets, it won't quiet the parts of him that were never given a voice. He tries to write it out, tries to text it, tries to sleep it away, but emotions don't care about logic. They sit, they fester, they multiply in shadows, and the boy, this boy, he knows what they're doing. He knows the damage. But he also knows that to take off the mask in front of the wrong people is to risk being shattered completely. And so he chooses silence, not because he's weak, but because it's safer than rejection disguised as concern. And it doesn't stop at home, it follows him everywhere. In classrooms where vulnerability is treated like a virus, in friend groups where honesty is ammunition, in a world that tells boys to be kings but never teaches them how to bleed without being mocked. He walks around with the weight of expectations strapped to his spine like bricks, each one carved with a word he never chose: provider, protector, tough, emotionless, perfect. He dreams of a place where he doesn't have to explain himself, where his silence doesn't get misread as disrespect, where someone really looks at him, not the surface him, not the curated version, but the real mess beneath, and doesn't flinch, where I'm struggling doesn't become gossip, where he doesn't have to trade pieces of his soul for a sliver of understanding. He doesn't need to be saved. He just needs someone who won't run, who won't shrink when he finally speaks the things he's swallowed for years. He needs to know he can show up as the worst version of himself and not be abandoned, because only then will he ever feel safe enough to become the best version. Only then does the scream begin to settle, not because someone silenced it, but because someone finally listened without fear.